In January 2020, Dr. Hope Sabanpanyu, a good friend and convener of this very conference, sent me an email inquiring about the primary influence on the traditional Filipino serenade known as Harana. She pointed out conflicting sources. One suggested the influence of the habanera, while another proposed the bolero. What struck me as surprising was the lack of comprehensive studies on this topic, to the extent that Harana wasn't even mentioned in the CCP Encyclopedia of the Arts. I responded to Doc Hope suggesting that the Danza Habanera was likely a more significant influence on the Harana than the bolero in the Philippine context. The bolero, while an important musical form in other Spanish colonies in Latin America, is more commonly associated in the Philippines with a traditional dress, just like what Doc Hope was wearing yesterday, or connotes a flatterer or sweet talker like bolero ka. The confusion with the bolero arises from its similar function as a serenade music form in Cuba known as trova. While trova involves itinerant singing accompanied by guitars, both the danza habanera and the bolero are stylistic forms with distinct rhythmic expressions. Although trova appears in early 20th century sources here in the Philippines, historical and ethnographic accounts clearly indicate that it is the habanera, not the bolero, that has left a lasting imprint on the Harana tradition together with native genres such as kumintang and kundiman. This understanding forms the foundation of this presentation titled Transcultural Dimensions of Courtship in the Philippines, analyzing the Kundiman and Danza Habanera within the Harana tradition, where I will explore these transcultural exchanges and their significance in shaping Filipino musical and cultural identity. The Kundiman, a native genre translated into the Western music tradition, and on the other hand, the danza habanera, a foreign form that has been localized, epitomize the syncretic blending of local traditions with foreign influences in the Filipinos' expression of love, reflecting both cultural resilience and the negotiation of identity. These musical genres not only serve as expressions of romantic intent, but also as cultural artifacts that reflect the dynamic interplay between the Philippines' complex colonial history and its indigenous heritage. Drawing on concepts from Mary Louise Pratt's contact zone, Ramón Grosfoguel's decolonization theories, and Alejandro Madrid's ideas on musical modernity, this research explores the Harana, Kundiman, and Danza Habanera as arenas of cultural interaction and resistance. These musical forms serve as conduits for negotiating Filipino identity, challenging the simplistic narrative of cultural assimilation by showcasing a dynamic process of cultural reinvention. Filipino musicians, rather than being passive recipients of cultural impositions, actively engage with these influences to reshape and assert their cultural identity. Looking into historical accounts, illustrations, musical compositions, and recordings, these theoretical perspectives illuminate the Arana not merely as a relic of colonial past, but as a vibrant testament to Filipino resilience and creativity. By focusing on Harana, a prevalent everyday life setting in rural Philippines of the past, this research enriches our understanding of traditional music forms and their significance in contemporary cultural discourse. What is the harana? The harana is a cherished yet diminishing courtship tradition in the rural Philippines where young men serenade women beneath their windows with string instruments to express romantic interest. Believed to derive from Spanish jarana, a term used in Mexico to describe a type of small stringed instrument, the jarana, embodying a blend of indigenous and Spanish influences, developed into an endeared Filipino courtship ritual. Similarly, other Latin American countries have their own serenade traditions, such as the trova in Cuba, as mentioned earlier, and the mariachi in Mexico, each rich in emotion and cultural significance. Historically, the tradition of itinerant singing with string instruments parallels that of the Western medieval French troubadours. This practice was potentially introduced to the archipelago with the arrival of the Spanish colonizers in the late 16th century. By the early 17th century, the courtship serenade tradition was already mentioned by Pedro Chirino in his 1604 account. The Jesuit historian recorded that early Filipinos were found of serenading, marking the earliest evidence of the Western serenade transplanted in the country. He also stated that indigenous instruments like the kutyapi were initially used for serenading rather than the Iberian guitar during those early years of colonization. By 1846, the French traveler chronicler Jean Mala observed in his book that groups of Filipino bachelors serenaded their sweethearts under Manila's moonlit skies, a custom that had evolved into a picturesque and romantic tradition. And according to Mala, they would even um, hire orchestra for this. So, in his 1851 Tipos del País, Jose Honorato Lozano vividly captures an ethnographic scene of a traditional Filipino Harana where a group of men equipped with various string and wind instruments perform a serenade beneath the moonlit sky. The men, adorned in striped and traditional Filipino attire, play outside a nipa hut, engaging in this customary courtship ritual as two women dressed in traditional barot saya watch attentively from the elevated wooden house's window, illustrating a deeply rooted cultural practice in rural Philippines. Another historical artwork, a sketch titled La Serenata del Comintang from 1890's publication of La Ilustración Filipina, depicts a group of Filipino musicians performing a serenade using or singing the kumintang, a traditional dance song form, demonstrating the use of this genre as well in the Harana. That's Honorato Lozano presented a transcription of the two Kundiman compositions in his 1847 publication. And let's listen to one of the Kundiman, the early Kundiman of 1847.
Mira por tu causa, mil males padezco de penas me muero. Cautiva me tienes, preso el pensamiento, sentido y potencia, ay dueña, ¿qué has hecho? Ay, Kundiman, ay Kundangan.
In 1895, Walls E. Merino also confirmed that the Kundiman was indeed the preferred music for Tagalog lovers serenading in the late 19th century. He describes the Kundiman as having evolved into the quintessential Filipino love song. So, Kundiman music examples presented in the Honorato Lozano as well as in Walls E. Merino are in triple meter with Tagalog songs that speaks of unrequited love for lone love. In the latter half of the 19th century, the introduction of the Danza Habanera to Manila marked a significant moment in the evolution of Filipino musical sensibilities. This period saw the Danza Habanera becoming increasingly integrated into the local musical landscape, reflecting a nuanced appropriation by Filipino composers and musicians. Enrique Cainglet's in 1990, Enrique Cainglet's dissertation in 1992, I think, provides a scholarly examination of this phenomenon, highlighting the transcultural fusion within Philippine musical traditions. And this was also the subject of my dissertation in 2017, Transculturation and Hybridity in 19th Century Music. Antonio Molina, in his 2004 seminal work History in Music and Music in History, expands on the terminology associated with the danza, listing various synonyms including danza habanera, danza menor, habanera filipina, pananapatan, and pangharana. Although he does not provide specific dates, Hila notes a significant historical shift wherein the danza was increasingly referred to as Harana, or the Filipino serenade, marking a cultural evolution in its perception and usage. So here, Florante Aguilar, a musician and cultural historian who did an ethnographic study of the Harana, no, pointed out in his article that this contemporary insights into the interpolations of the Harana, he outlines the distinctions between Harana and Kundiman, although the discussion ideally should focus on the danza and the Kundiman rather than Harana and Kundiman, since Harana is not a musical form but a social musical tradition. However, this conflation is understandable given that the appropriation of the Danza Habanera has become synonymous with Harana. According to discussions with modern Haranistas or serenaders, the term danza is now primarily understood as a rhythmic component, one element within the broader structural composition used in the Harana tradition. And over time, the danza became almost synonymous with the Harana itself. This tradition, which has also been referred to as serenata, enfrentada, tapatan, or panapatan, has developed into a significant social and community event, encapsulating themes of love, respect, and adherence to social norms. Let's listen to the Danza Habanera. This is Dungawin Mohira.
Ipapakinggan awit na mapanglaw.
That's the Habanera, is it?
Sa isang pusong nagmamahal.
Based on the ethnographic research of Florante Aguilar, who played a significant role in reviving and documenting the modern-day Harana, this romantic Filipino serenade progresses through four distinct stages, each marked by specific songs that shape the flow of the courtship. So this is the Pananapata or Pananawagan announcement, which features the suitor performing outside the maiden's residence, the pagtatapat, where the serenade intensifies into a heartfelt declaration of love, the panagutan, or response, the woman responds to the suitor's musical advances, and pamaalam, farewell, the final stage that concludes the evening. Very interesting that one of our researchers from Musica Filipinas, Paul Irvin Bibal, found this particular recording of 1929. It's sort of like parodying the Harana. So we have Atang de la Rama and Vicente Ocampo. Let's listen to it.
Okay. Neneng, pintang neneng, manungaw ka't dungawin mo akong patay na sa dusa. Hindi ka maawa sa aking pagsinta, bangkay ko'y tanghalin bukas ng umaga. Salamat sa Diyos na buksan ang bintana.
Ay, tipo, salamat at naparito ka. Talaga inaantay kita. Ang ibig ko sana ay magsabi ka muna sa tatay ko.
Ay, neneng, kung talagang mo sanang hindi ako ibigin, ay bukas ng umaga, pakakain na ako sa kambing.
Oh, huwag ka magsakamatay. Iibigin kita.
Yan nga ba?
Oo.
Ay, nako, pakinggan mo ang aking serenata.
He quotes it, Serenata ng Harana.
Oila, ang gabing
So this a distinctive feature of songs used in Harana is their deep sentimentalism. Except for that was a parody expressed to archaic Tagalog, Visayan, or Ilocano texts, words and phrases that are no longer common in everyday language. The poetic, often metaphoric text vividly depicts the context of the serenade. Another hallmark is the prevalent use of the Danza Habanera rhythm, although characteristically slower in tempo, which later we will see in succeeding examples. So there's a common misconception that most traditional Tagalog love songs fall into the category of kundiman. However, the Danza Habanera, despite sharing some characteristics with the kundiman, is a distinct musical genre identified by its characteristic rhythmic pattern. It has carved out its own unique place in the development of Philippine music, showcasing Filipino resilience and creativity. This study aims to clarify the differences between these genres, enhancing understanding not only of musical forms but also of how Filipinos express love and courtship through music. The Kundiman, with records dating back to the first half of the 19th century, is a song dance genre that expresses deep sense of love and longing. Jose Honorato Lozano in 1847 transcribed the Kundiman. An analysis of its feature exhibits deep roots in the Filipino identity, characterized by its lyrical content, melodic nuances, and profound emotional depth. Predominantly set in 3/4 time signature, the Kundiman offers a waltz-like accompaniment and is marked by poetic text typically structured in quatrains with themes centering on unrequited love. Moreover, one distinctive feature of the Kundiman is its melodic structure, particularly the use of a feminine ending or a feminine cadences in its phrase endings, incorporating an appoggiatura that resolves to a pyongnant second beat, creating signature melodic sigh that conveys deep emotional longing. This can be observed even in Lozano's early Kundiman. In contrast, the Danza Habanera, introduced in the Philippines by Peninsulares in the latter half of the 19th century, showcases a rhythmic complexity borrowed from its Cuban origins. This genre, characterized by its syncopated rhythm and distinctive 2/4 meter, with an accented second beat, became a significant element not only in the composed music tradition, but more importantly in the tradition of courtship serenade, particularly influencing the way love and affection were musically expressed during this romantic social event. So let me play an example of an early habanera in the Philippines, or danza habanera in the Philippines. This is from the very first zarzuela composed in the archipelago, dated 1878 by Ignacio Masaguer. That's a habanera rhythm. Okay, we don't have time. And presently, the earliest danza habanera written in the vernacular is Julio Nakpil's vocal work entitled Pag-ibig, composed in 1897, as he courted the widow of Andres Bonifacio. Historically, women who were serenaded and had songs written for them by men as expressions of love were highly likely to reciprocate those feelings. Nakpil's romantic endeavor proved successful, culminating in their marriage on December 8, 1898 at Quiapo Church. You can listen to it in YouTube. It's available, Pag-ibig by Julio Nakpil. Then Kundiman pieces composed by early composers such as Francisco Santiago's Kundiman Anakdalita, which was composed in 1917, one of the earliest Kundiman as an art song, now incorporate elements of the Harana tradition. While this may not be evident in the Tagalog text, if you look into the Spanish text written by Jesus Balmori, included in the first edition sheet music, it vividly depicts the Harana in this Kundiman. And this is the text: De mi guitarra indígena la canción galana, sa va al tremblor de petalos que hay en tu ventana. So clearly, the inspiration for this particular Kundiman was Harana. Let's listen to it short. Just
Sumbi halandalita,
Santiago, who became the father of the Kundiman, also captures the essence of the Harana in another of his composition, Pakiusap, written in 1922. If you would look at the text, natutulog ka man, irog kung matinitiman, tunghayan mo man lamang nagpapaalam. So this clearly, as well as gently here, dahan-dahan mong mutya, buksan mo ang bintana. So very interesting that the Harana has been an inspiration in composed music of early Filipino when they started composing for the Kundiman. I'd like to point out another example, Nicanor Abelardo, whose piece Bituing Marikit is widely regarded as a quintessential Kundiman, but is in fact structured as a danza. Traditionally, most danza habaneras were composed in a major key termed danza mayor. However, Filipino composers, possibly influenced by the minor key of the Kundiman, began crafting danzas in minor keys, hence the designation danza menor. Abelardo's composition starts in a minor key and modulates to a major key. So, but it uses the rhythmic pattern of the the danza habanera. And even the text actually is not a Kundiman text, but rather it's soliciting the love and wooing the love of his Bituing Marikit or the beloved star. So this blending of genres and shifting modalities exemplifies the intricate interplay between indigenous musical expressions and imported stylistic elements, showcasing the dynamic adaptability and rich hybridity of Filipino musical culture. So Kundiman developed as a serious musical genre, often employing metaphorical language to reference not only romantic love, but also the love of country. Danza Habanera, which has been transculturated into what is now known as Danza Filipina, has evolved into a lighter, more expressive form of love song that resonates deeply within Filipino cultural expressions of affection. So some Haranistas became big recording artists such as Ruben Tagalog, Larry Miranda, Danilo Santos, Zenon Lagman, and Rick Manrique, who were instrumental in popularizing Harana songs through recording. So the soulful renditions of classic Harana songs such as Ala Ala Kita in danza rhythm are quintessential Harana songs that describe the longing and adoration characteristic of traditional Filipino courtship. So let's listen to Ruben Tagalog.
Akala mo yata ika'y nilili, alala kita sa gabing pagko.
While the practice of Harana may not be as prevalent as it was, it remains a symbol of Filipino romanticism and cultural heritage. The tradition has inspired numerous composers to create pieces that capture its essence, such as Antonio Molina's violin and piano composition, Hating Gabi. And additionally, the contemporary song Harana by Parokya ni Edgar reflects on proclaiming one's love through this cherished serenading tradition, or even the songs of the modern day so-called Harana boys, Arthur Neri and Sapta Budlo. Through this narrative, the paper celebrates the agency of Filipino musicians in the colonial and post-colonial eras, recognizing the inventive and dynamic responses of colonized populations. It positions the Harana tradition not merely as a relic of colonial influence, but as a living testament to the ongoing dialogue about identity, resistance, and creativity within the Philippines. Thank you so much.